What is the most popular genre of book? Just wait until you hear. Hi there, everyone. It's Jeff, and this is Plain English, where we help you upgrade your English with stories about current events and trending topics. December is book month at Plain English, so we have our final episode about books today. And just a programming note, the Plain English team will be off for the 2 weeks around Christmas, and many of you, I suspect, will be busy with things as we turn the page from 2024 to 2025. So we'll be bumping a few classic episodes up to the top of your podcast feed for the next 2 weeks, and we'll kick off 2025 right with a new episode on January 6th. So we'll be together on Thursday for a new episode, but then we'll be off for a few weeks. Now, today's expression is from scratch, a very common expression in English. This is episode number 736, so you'll find the transcript, activities, practice opportunities, and translations at plainenglish.com/736. Before we start today's story, I'd just like to remind you that the podcast is just one part of how we can help you upgrade your English skills. At plainenglish.com, you can make faster progress with active learning strategies. You can take quizzes, do activities, listen to the fast version of the audio, watch video workshops, practice what you learn, and even join a live call with JR and me. It's all about helping you build your skills to become a better, more confident English speaker. Sound good? Go to plainenglish.com to start your free 14-day trial today. Now, let's jump into today's story. What is the most popular genre in publishing in the United States? If you walk through an airport bookstore, you might think it's business or self-help. Books like The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg dominate the front windows of bookshops in the departure lounge. If you browse the stacks at your local independent bookstore, you might think it's literary fiction. Books like Long Island by Colum Tabine. If you're at a big chain store, you might think the best-selling genre is mystery or thrillers. If you said any of those things, though, you would be wrong. The best-selling genre in bookselling is romance. That's right, romance beats mysteries, self-help, business, thrillers, fantasy, biography, literary fiction, cookbooks, all of it. When I say romance, I'm not referring to the concept of love. I'm not referring to a love story or a book with romantic themes. A romance novel is a specific genre of book, and a novel must have certain things to be classified as romance. Here they are. Are you ready? Love and attraction must be the primary storyline. There must be doubt, tension, or conflict between the two main characters. And finally, a romance novel must have a happy ending. This part is not negotiable. If there isn't a happy ending, it isn't a romance novel. There is tension, there is conflict, but it's always resolved in the end with the hero and heroine getting together. And so, yes, I just gave you a spoiler for every single one of the thousands of romance novels published every year. The guy and the girl, or the guy and the guy, or the girl and the girl, or the girl and the alien, whatever, the two main characters get together in the end. The appeal of a romance novel is not the outcome, but the journey. The how is more important than the what. Romance novels are about complexities and tensions in relationships. They explore themes like trust, attraction, betrayal, desire, communication, conflict, disagreement, and personal differences. Romance novels date back to the 18th century. Some say Jane Austen is the godmother of the romance genre. Over the years, romance novels have changed. They've mirrored the values of the times in which they were published. A romance from the 1800s would have focused on traditional courtship and emotional connections. The most daring scenes might have included furtive glances or a man's hand gently brushing a woman's hand. In the mid-20th century, romance novels had a sweet period. These novels featured traditional ideas of love and marriage, with men and women playing their traditional roles. Kissing was common, but most sexual content was closed door. That means readers were invited to imagine what happened in the bedroom, but it was rarely, if ever, spelled out on the page. That all changed in the 1970s. Just as society was going through a sexual revolution, so was the romance genre. Authors started to push boundaries of men's and women's roles, and the scenes became a lot steamier and a lot more imaginative. In the 1990s, the romance industry started to diversify with subgenres. And just like romance novels have their rules, so too do the subgenres have their rules and traditions. What are some subgenres of romance novels? I'm glad you asked. There's gay and lesbian romance. There's paranormal romance. Paranormal romance combines the supernatural or science fiction with a romance storyline. Aliens and monsters have their own subgenres. Hey, aliens can fall in love too. There are religious romance genres. Teenage romance is a thing. And then there's the erotic subgenre. 50 Shades of Grey is the most famous example. Contemporary romance books have themes that reflect the times we're in today. Themes like online dating, long-distance relationships, social media, blended families, and career pressures. The romance publishing industry today is as strong as ever, thanks to several economic forces. The first is e-readers. Let's be honest here. There's a stigma to reading romance novels. Many people don't want to be seen reading them in public. They have eye-catching, sexy covers that might not be something you want to read on the train as you go to your Wall Street job. But e-readers allow people to read even the most erotic stories in public without any shame. Romance novels are fast to read. They're usually about 200 pages. Some fans read 10 or more romance novels a month. Some fans read one a day. If you buy 10 books a month, pretty soon you will have a storage problem on your hands. E-readers let you go through lots of books with no waiting for shipments to arrive and no huge bookshelves required to store your collection. The other boost to the industry is self-publishing. There is one huge player in the romance publishing industry, Harlequin. So if Harlequin doesn't accept your romance novel, it can be really hard to get sales in the traditional way. But now, any author can self-publish a novel on Amazon and sell it on the Kindle platform. In the rest of the publishing industry, self-published novels are considered less prestigious, less worthy than books published by a traditional publishing house. But romance readers, in part because they read so much, romance readers are willing to give new authors a shot if they have a good story. And many readers don't mind if a writer self-publishes or not. So romance writers, more than writers of other genres, have found success by self-publishing. It's definitely more legwork for the writer to self-publish because the writer is in charge of the marketing. But still, it's a win-win. The writers get to keep a greater percentage of the sales, and the readers can spend less money per title. I have read romance novels, and you know what? I had no idea at the time. Now, to the best of my knowledge, I have read a few, and they are all by the author John Green. One is called The Fault in Our Stars. And when I read those books, I had no idea they were considered romance novels. I might never have picked them up if I had known. So maybe I have been too quick to judge the romance genre. And just to give it another try, I picked out a romance novel called Funny Story by Emily Henry to read over the holidays. I do not consider myself a romance reader, but I do consider myself open to new ideas. So let's see how this goes. I thought about looking for an alien romance story, but I think I need to warm up to the genre first. From scratch is the English expression you'll learn today. This expression first appeared in episode 437. That was about a new capital city under construction in Egypt. You might know the capital is Cairo, but Egypt has ambitions to create a new capital city from scratch. So now, listen to the lesson and learn what it means to do something from scratch. Today, we are going to talk about what it means to do something from scratch. When you do something from scratch, you start with nothing already done for you. You can say that you do something from scratch, make something from scratch, or build something from scratch. And in all those cases, nothing is already done for you. Instead, you have to use the basic tools and ingredients to do all the assembly and building yourself. So let's start with how you heard it in today's lesson. Egypt is building a new capital city from scratch. They are building it in the desert. There was no city there before. No sewers, no roads, no parks, no trees, no nothing. They started with nothing already done. They're not expanding Cairo in a new direction. They're not converting an existing city into the capital. Nope. They are starting from scratch. They started with a big piece of empty desert. London and Istanbul are both big travel hubs in Europe. If London wants to continue being a gateway to Europe, then it needs more airport capacity. The government keeps going back and forth on options, but they're considering building another runway at Heathrow Airport and expanding capacity at the region's other airports. Istanbul did it differently. Turkey built a massive new airport from scratch. It opened in 2019. What was there before? A lot of the land that is now the gleaming new airport was once government-owned forest. They truly built that airport from scratch. They didn't start with anything already built. So that's buildings or construction. Another way to use from scratch is to talk about meals. I love pasta and meatballs. It's great comfort food. But I have a confession to make, and that is this. When I prepare pasta and meatballs, I don't make it from scratch. I get the pasta pre-made, and I'm almost embarrassed to confess this since we have so many listeners in Italy, but I usually just pour the marinara sauce out of a jar. Well, what would I have to do to make pasta and meatballs from scratch? For the pasta, I'd have to buy the flour, eggs, olive oil, and salt. Then I'd have to combine them into a dough. And finally, I'd form the pasta somehow and cook it. For the sauce, I'd need to start with the tomatoes, oil, and spices and cook it. And for the meatballs, I'd have to start with ground beef and add maybe some ricotta cheese and dried up old breadcrumbs. Making a meal from scratch is a lot of effort. A lot of you work with spreadsheets. Maybe you make financial models like I sometimes do. One great way to save time when you need to make a spreadsheet is to start with an example or a template. That way, you don't have to start from scratch. You don't have to start from nothing. But there are some tasks that you need to start from scratch, either because the old models are too messy or because you're starting something new. If you start a spreadsheet from scratch, you press Control N and you start with that cursor on A1. You write your own formulas, do your own formatting. Nothing comes from a template, not if you're building a spreadsheet or a model from scratch. So what this means is that when you do something from scratch, you start without any of the work already done. However, we have to be reasonable when we use from scratch. We can use our judgment here. For example, if I want to make meatballs from scratch, I don't have to slaughter the cow myself. I can buy ground beef, but I can't buy meatballs that have been pre-made at the grocery store. If I want to make a spreadsheet from scratch, I don't have to build a new computer with my own two hands. I can start with a blank Excel workbook, and it's still from scratch. And that's all for Plain English, episode number 736. Any romance fans out there? Statistics say many of you probably are, so this episode was for you. I enjoyed writing and researching this episode. This was a completely new world to me. Well, that's what we try to do here. Introduce you to new topics, let you hear new words, new ideas, get you thinking, maybe laughing in English. There's one more new Plain English episode of 2024, and that is coming up on Thursday when we'll talk about gift giving. See you then. Congratulations! You just learned a new English expression. But do you feel ready to use it in the real world? Just how confident are you? What if you could take a quiz to confirm your understanding? And what if you could write your own sentence using the expression you just learned and get human feedback from an expert English speaker? Believe it or not, we offer exactly that at plainenglish.com. Every time you learn an expression with Plain English, you can write your own example using that expression. And then an expert English speaker, that's me, an expert English speaker will read your example and give you personal feedback on how to improve. In other words, you can make all your mistakes with us in a friendly, supportive environment. And then you'll be an expert when you use the expression out in the real world. If that sounds good to you, then go to plainenglish.com and start your free 14-day trial. Practice as many English expressions as you like, and you'll get feedback on every sentence. Go to plainenglish.com to start your free 14-day trial today.